Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the first instance, I'd like to pay tribute to Mrs. Nadira Hassan, after whom this college is named. She was a relative of mine. She was actually my mother's cousin and someone who I knew personally, spent time with. She was a great person, a great woman, a mother, a sister, and someone who inspired me in my earlier days. She spent time with us in London. I have fond memories of time spent with her, and indeed Justice Jawad Hassan when he was a budding young lawyer. I would like for a minute for us to say Surah Fatiha in private in memory of Mrs. Nadira Hassan. When I was thinking about talking to you today, I did not want to have a lecture where I spoke to you or pronounced lots of areas of law. MashaAllah, you are all studying law and I'm very proud of you, and you should also be proud of yourselves. You have already achieved a lot by being here, by being admitted to this prestigious institution, despite many of the challenges you will face. And so what I thought I would do is just give you my own story and perhaps relate it to some of the challenges that you might face as potential and budding lawyers for the future. I think as society is constituted, having women lawyers, having women judges is absolutely fundamental to any society. And until any society, any government, any country can achieve that, it is not making real progress. How could it be that you have a profession which is dominated by men, a judiciary that's dominated by men, when well over half the population is female? How can justice be properly dispensed? So these are the real challenges that you all face. But I think you've already begun your journey by studying, getting admitted to this law school, and you are, I'm sure, fighting many things at home and for future workplace. In the words of the great advocate attorney Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I quote, "Real change, enduring change, happens one step at a time." And I think that's very true. Change doesn't come quickly. It happens slowly. It sometimes be frustrating. It sometimes be very debilitating. You feel desperate. You feel things will never change. But change will happen. And sometimes in life, things that you regard as an impediment may actually turn out to be a great fortune. And here I relate to you my story. So I hail from Lahore. My family were here and moved from here to Africa and then to UK in the 1960s. I was born in Africa, but we visited Pakistan regularly every 6 months. My grandmother was here. And as a young child, my first passion was to become a pilot. I was discouraged against that by my father, who felt it was too dangerous a profession. And I then wanted to become a lawyer. And I also faced challenges. When I first said to my professor of law, as my careers teacher at school, I'd like to study law at the London School of Economics, he was taken aback. "Don't set your sights too high, Saleem," he said to me. "This is a very prestigious school, and what if you don't get in?" So I said to him, "Look, you've got to start somewhere. Let me try. If I don't make it, I don't make it." Once I got into LSE, I progressed through the ranks, studied corporate law, studied commercial law, and then came the time to do my master's, my professional qualifications, which again academically I was able to pursue. The problem came when I applied for jobs. I decided to become a solicitor. In England, as you know, we have a split profession. We have solicitors and barristers. Solicitors deal with corporate commercial work, also litigation, and advocacy is done by barristers. Here you have a fused profession of advocates only. And when I applied for jobs, I began to feel, and perhaps relate this to the disparity and the discrimination that women suffer, that the employers, predominantly white English law firms, who interviewed me, predominantly white English men, although accepting that I had the paper qualifications, were somewhat reluctant to offer me a job. I continued, I didn't stop. I made over 400 applications. I received many rejections. My father, who was a graduate from Government College Lahore in economics, said to me, "Don't give up, Beta, you must fight on." And that's what I did. Eventually got a job, and here I am 41 years later, So what I would say to you, thank you, is don't give up. Always stand firm. The law needs you more than you need the law, believe me. And in a situation, even in a developed country like Pakistan, like the UK, women were only entitled to practice law in the early 1900s. Actually, it was an act of parliament that was passed. In the beginning, there were very few female lawyers. Today, around 2019 census, there are 51% of the legal profession in the UK is comprised of female lawyers, and I'm very proud of that. So, in terms of you might say, well, that's all very well, that's England, this is Pakistan. Well, Pakistan is a free nation, it is our nation, and it is a young nation, and it is still developing, and it is very easy, and so many people like me who are British, proud British Pakistanis, sit in London in the comfort of their homes and criticize Pakistan, and I think that's very wrong. This is our nation, we all need to give back, we all need to come and make Pakistan better. And I'm sure that if we all make some contribution in due course, things will improve. It will take time, and it will take brave women like you, women who have stood up to the challenges, who have said, we want to study law. And beyond that, you will continue to face challenges. Get married, don't go abroad to study, just do court work, just do office work. All these things will I'm sure, be presented to you. And what do you do in return? It's all very well to say, well, yes, I would, but how do you go about it? I think a lot comes from within, how much determination you have. What I found being an Asian lawyer in London in the early 80s, and perhaps you could relate that in some way to being a female lawyer today in Pakistan, is I had to be better. I had to be better than my counterpart. I had to be good at what I did, and once you are good at what you do and you work hard at it, you don't have to be a genius, then you do get recognized, because talent comes through. Meritocracy does eventually rise, and that's what I firmly believe. And I not only say that, I've practiced that in my life. So I have encouraged my wife, who is now also a lawyer. She was a banker, also a graduate from LSE, Saleem Sheikh. After we'd had 3 children, she said to me one day, do you know, my lifelong dream was to become a lawyer, but coming from a traditional Pakistani family, my parents didn't want me to study law because it would take too long, and I had 2 other sisters who needed to get married. So I said, well, if that's the case, let's make this happen. I helped her, and to her full credit, she went to law school. I became more of a father than I was prior to that. I spent time with my children. I have 3 children. And she studied as a mother in England with not much help domestically, and qualified, had to do 2 degrees, and became a lawyer. So it's possible. In our home, we always encouraged equality. I have 2 daughters and 1 son. One of my daughters wanted to be a lawyer, and she's, alhamdulillah, accomplished that. She read law at University of Cambridge. She worked, she did her postgrad, became a solicitor, worked for a large international law firm, and now is a disputes lawyer at my firm. Her name is Saleem Sheikh, and I'm very proud to say that she works with me within the law firm. So I think we as men also have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. It's easy. Men see women as potentially a challenge in the legal workplace, and they are. I can tell you, in my humble opinion, women make fantastic lawyers. They're much better at multitasking, they have a more balanced view, they grasp issues quickly, and we really, and in my law firm, sorry, I forgot to mention, we have a number of female lawyers, we have a number of female trainees, we have a number of female partners who sit at the partnership table with me and make important decisions about the growth of our firm, our hiring, our recruitment, our learning and development programs, and how actually we have a policy of women empowerment to make sure there is no disparity, make sure there is no discrimination, that women are paid the same salary as men because they're doing the same job, and in many cases better than men, so why should there be a disparity in what they earn? So again, this change is happening. It's very slow, but it's happening. But even in an established democracy like the UK, it's taken hundreds of years. So don't despair. Things will change. I will do whatever I can. I've spoken to Aisha today. The reason I'm coming back and connecting more with Pakistan is I would like to help guide more students like you. I want you to achieve your potential. I want you to have an environment where you can excel and where you can feel proud of yourselves and what you've achieved. So enough of my talk. I'd said to Aisha, I don't want to give you hours and hours of speech, and what I would like to have is perhaps a bit more of an interactive session now, and please feel free to raise any issues you want with me about any aspect of law or my journey, and let's try and have, if that's okay with you, if we could have a more interactive session now. So I'll open the floor to you. If you'd like to speak, perhaps you'd raise your hand.
Challenge particularly that you say that we prepare for when we enter the legal field or when we enter the practice?
There are many challenges. The one challenge is if people think you are going to be good, sadly some people will put you down. They may not always give you the opportunity. You have to believe in yourself. There is politics in offices. There is politics in the courtroom. There shouldn't be. But the challenge is believe in yourself. Know your strength, know your subject. If you're going to a meeting, or if you're attending, doing some research, do the best you can.
Do you think that the challenges which are faced by women in UK when they're practicing law are different as compared to the South Asian societies?
We are very different societies, and I think the challenges are different. Perhaps the women in the West faced these challenges earlier in our development. But yes, they're very different. There is a different mindset. There's no pressure on women to get married. There's no pressure on women not to travel abroad to study. And so these are handicaps that we have within our society. They have different challenges. Most women in London, like my daughter, she has to balance a home life with work life. So she has to be, and most husbands will help with them, and my daughter runs a very busy practice, and she manages that. Alhamdulillah, she's actually expecting a child later this year, and we have a very good program for women who have children and postnatal care. We provide facilities for them. We also allow them to work from home. So there are many issues, many challenges they face that are different, and different solutions, and I think that's what we have to look for. What are the solutions?
If you are a woman, how do you think your journey would be more difficult or something?
I think, if I'm very honest with you, and I'd like to be honest, I think it would have been a more difficult journey, undoubtedly, with pressure from home, the work environment. In some ways, my journey has a parallel to being a woman, in the sense I faced a society that was there was a lot of racism. Asian lawyers were not given the right jobs. Women lawyers are not given the right jobs. We were given areas of law, not corporate law, not international law. I was asked to practice criminal law or immigration law, certain simpler cases. But what I did, I fought back because I wanted to fight. I wanted to practice commercial law. I wanted to be doing international law. So yes, I think that my journey would have been harder. Would my resolve have been any less? I hope not. I hope that I would have stood up and said, no, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I can't do what a man does. Indeed, women do a lot more than we do, and had it not been for a woman, I wouldn't be here standing in front of you. And I think men forget that. And I often remind all lawyers who work with me to respect their mothers, to respect their sisters, because, as I've said, women create future generations. And any society which doesn't value that is really lacking very substantially. And therefore my quest is always to promote women. And I did this actually in South Africa. I'll give you another example. I headed up a law firm in South Africa, which I took over in the early 1990s, just before President Mandela was released from prison. And I had the opportunity of meeting him when I opened my new office. And I launched what was called Affirmative Action. So what we did was we gave precedence to black, coloured, young lawyers. We supported them through university, and when somebody applied to us, if they were men or women, if there was someone black, we would give them preference. because they'd not been given the advantages of the white minority in that country. And we ran a number of very successful programs and produced some very good female lawyers. And they face similar issues: financing, funding, family, culture, lack of opportunity, access to opportunities. Sorry, it's a bit of a long-winded answer.
My question is, women are generally perceived to be emotional to deal with the arguments in court. So what's your opinion how women could get into court to argue the case, considering this emotional attitude attached to women?
I think my first point is we're all humans. I think there's too much issue about men and women. We all have emotions. Anyone who doesn't have emotions, a bit of a sad human being, in my view. And I think, as I said to you earlier, I think women are actually more able to deal with emotional issues, balance issues, deal with multitasking. So I think this argument, wherever it comes from, is completely flawed. Women are not more emotional. Actually, women are very, very balanced. They look at everything. How does a woman bring up a child? Ask a man to bring up a child. Ask a man to get up in the middle of the night and change the baby and feed the baby. You will hear hundreds and hundreds of complaints. Women do that, and they do it quietly, with pride and with dignity. So I'm a firm believer, women are human beings. We are all human beings. We are all created equal. That is the basis of our faith. Our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that. Gave women the rights that they were lacking. Women used to be killed. When girls were born, pre-Islam, they were actually buried alive. If any of you saw the film The Message, you would have seen that. So how can we as Muslims today deny that and say, well, women, we're still going back to the Dark Ages? But you know what? It's a bit of a closed shop, because it's too easy for men to perpetuate that past, because for them it's easy. It's an easier ride. We see now in the West, where women are coming through, that women are CEOs, women are judges, women are in Parliament. We have women prime ministers. We've had that in this country too. But I think the mentality, and hopefully the more education there is of men and women, I think the better society will become. Because in my view, you need three fundamentals for a good society. You need rule of law, you need good education, and you need respect. And you need to respect women. That's enshrined in our Constitution of Pakistan. Everyone has human rights. So no one has the ability to deny you those opportunities. And I know it's easier to say and harder to do, but I say it with some conviction, because I feel that I've done it, and I say that very humbly, because I was also helped in that process by my father, who guided me, by my mother, who made sure, with small little things like making sure I had 3 badam every morning to help my brain get better, to praying for me, and to Almighty Allah for giving me the strength to continue. I worked with different communities. I worked with Jewish communities, English communities, European communities, faced many challenges. But I think what I found was that as long as you are true to yourself, you're good at what you do, you will be spotted, you will come through. So don't give up.
That women are too emotional. Normally, this is a patriarchal statement, and we hear it because probably they just want to say that women are too emotional to deal with the stress or deal with the pressure, challenges. It's not true at all. We are empathetic. We can always say that women are more empathetic than men. So probably they just come up with this thing that they are emotional and don't go there, and so job is so drilling or all that stuff. So don't believe this. It's not true.
In your experience, how can we play a part to bring awareness among society to adopt law profession as a woman, especially in Pakistan?
I spoke a lot to younger students when I was coming through, because when I was coming through the ranks, we had a strange dilemma. The older Pakistani or Asian lawyers in London saw us as a bit of a threat, because we were the new breed of Asian lawyers, Pakistani lawyers. And there are very few. I head up a law firm in London as a Pakistani, and I'm a proud Pakistani. So people will give you, and they would say to me, don't go into law. It's a very difficult profession. You will not make money. You will not get the cases. This is a white man's profession. And I listened, but I was not put off. So what you can do is be good at what you are. Do what you are doing. Make the most of opportunities. Push as much as you can, because sadly no one will knock on the door and say, here's a great opportunity. You have to network. You have to get out there. Today you guys have the benefit of social media. We had none of that. And social media gives you a voice. You can go on Twitter, you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on to Instagram, and my kids sometimes go on TikTok as well, which I don't, but you can say a lot. You can make a video and post it. Inspire the youngsters, and also find a good mentor. A good mentor will help you. A sincere mentor will encourage you, will give you the right advice. I think if you follow that and don't give up, it's easy to say, but take a step back. You may hit a brick wall, that's fine. Take a step back and try and find a solution. If you can't speak to people, you can reach out to me. I'm very happy to talk to anyone who feels they're at a loggerhead, they need advice, they need to progress, because I think you are the future of this country. You are the people who can make this country better. It is a great nation. Yes, we have problems and we have issues like any developing nation, but we are free, we are azad, we have our own country. Look at what's happening in other parts of the world. Look at the Muslims in India. Look at Palestine. Look at Yemen. There are so many issues. Look at Ukraine, where freedom has been lost. So we have the biggest thing is freedom. Now we need to make most of it. And we need to bring you, the women, the great women of Pakistan, and you have here a remarkable example with Aisha, who is here teaching you. She went abroad, she studied abroad, she's here giving you guys an opportunity as well. Speak to her, look at her, her journey, because journeys teach a lot. And if people are sincere, they'll give you good advice. So spread the word. Yes.
My name is Manya Qasim, and as you said, you have a law firm in Pakistan. How does your law firm help young female lawyers? What programs or what type of statements or things are you doing to help young female lawyers in Pakistan?
Just to correct, we don't have a law firm in Pakistan, not yet. Maybe we will. We have a law firm in London. It's an international law firm. However, we work with a number of law firms here, and there are some excellent law firms and excellent lawyers in Pakistan. Have the highest respect for male and female lawyers. So we do work with them. We give them training. We encourage them to recruit young lawyers. I have affirmative action for me. I did it in Africa. I'm doing it in Pakistan. Support women, encourage women, bring them on. Work placements, internships, give them projects to do, have clinics. Aisha and I spoke earlier about clinics and legal clinics, where it's all very well studying law from a book, but law is practiced, it's dynamic, it's an art. You're in a courtroom, it's a bit theatrical. So we need to get you to be involved more in legal clinics, and inshallah I'll be working with Aisha and the college here to see how we can help establish places like that. Sadly, and I do speak a lot to law firms, not enough is being done. Clearly, the people who are doing well are trying to do even better, which is very good, but you also have to look back and say, where did I come from? Who gave me an opportunity? And I do look back with humility, because I had to be given an opportunity. Actually, a Jewish man gave me an opportunity, because when I had 400 rejections, I almost gave up, and I thought, I didn't want to practice in the suburbs. I wanted to practice in the heart of London, Chancery Lane. And I thought, maybe this is not going to happen for me. And then my professor of law at London School of Economics said to me, Saleem, why don't you go and see my brother-in-law, who's a Jewish man. He runs a law firm in the city of London. And I was humbled. By that time, I'd got an offer from another law firm. However, it was after 6 interviews, and I felt they couldn't say no, because I could probably have filed a case against them for racial discrimination. Because I had 6 interviews with 6 panel lawyers, and on paper, alhamdulillah, I'd done well at university. I should have got that job. And actually, they gave it to me in writing. But I felt this is a really, really, it's like a reluctant bride at a wedding. They didn't really want me, they've had to take me. So I had this in my pocket. My professor spoke to me. I went to see this. Actually, he came to see me, invited me for breakfast. I really liked this gentleman. He was a British Jewish guy whose family had suffered persecution after Nazi Germany, were in Russia, then came to England. So a similar story of discrimination. And he said to me something that still reverberates with me. He came from a big firm and then set up his own firm, the firm that I now head up 41 years later, and we're celebrating our 50th year in business. He said to me, Saleem, you have an opportunity and a responsibility. The opportunity is that you can become a leading legal advisor for your communities. Your communities are entrepreneurial. Your communities are expanding, just like the Jewish communities did in England in the early 1900s. Come to us, we will train you. But if we do, you have a responsibility. I want you to do the same for other people. I want you to encourage disadvantaged minorities. I want you to encourage, at that time we had female lawyers in the office. So I had a great opportunity there. I hope that answered your question. G.
So I can't really speak for everybody else, but for me in particular, it's very intimidating for me to speak up in front of people, to interact with them. At least to speak up in front of people who are legally too experienced. Do you have any recommendations to overcome that? Maybe, perhaps.
Yes, the first thing you've got to understand is people who are legal people are human beings. We're all fallible. We have our own issues. I was a bit nervous coming here today to speak to a distinguished crowd like you. I think the practice will help. I think you don't have legal clinics, that sort of thing. So not just studying law from a book, but actually having an interactive session, having lawyers coming in and perhaps case studies, helping you talk. I think that would help you. I used to talk in front of a mirror. People thought I was mad. But in order to try and get my confidence, I'd stand in front of a mirror and I'd speak to myself and I'd see, how did I come across? Then when the video came, at university, I don't know if you have this, we used to have mood trials and we were videoed. And if you watch yourself on video, you actually see how well or badly you're doing. And believe me, there are many times where I looked at myself, oh God, I would never instruct me if I was a client. But practice makes perfect. You have to start. And the other thing is, which again Aisha and I discussed, we have to get you into a courtroom. Until you're in the courtroom, the best lawyers are crafted in courtrooms, the best judges. We have to get you into courtrooms. We have to give you the opportunity to argue, to speak with confidence. You may have a very senior judge next to you, a lawyer. It could be a Supreme Court lawyer, a High Court lawyer, it doesn't really matter. Don't be intimidated. Speak slowly and speak with confidence. And what you speak, you must have researched. So research your points, research your cases, so that you are actually ahead of the game. And if you do that, then you will slowly, it won't happen overnight. And I did this with my daughter, actually, my younger daughter who works at Ernst & Young. She's a consultant, she served at LSE and also Imperial, was much more talkative. The middle daughter, Sana, who became a lawyer, was very talkative at home but very quiet outside. And now she's a High Court's advocate, she practices law, she goes into court. And we did have these discussions at home. So talk to your parents, talk to your siblings. If there's a case going on in the press, read about it. Discuss it with your friends. That will help you. Practice. Any other questions? Yes?
There are a lot of social and cultural barriers associated to women who are in practice.
Yes.
Do you think this hinders them to accept the challenges that are going to be available to, or they will face them in the
Yes. I think entirely there are. Please have a seat. Look, we're a product of our past. We're a product of our communities and our societies and our homes and the values. So yes, there are, and that's a fact. And there will be more, and things will change, and societies are evolving. There are some things you can't do anything about. So if you have those restrictions, those negative views around you, you have to listen, because listening never harmed anyone. Again, I'm a great fan of Ruth Ginsburg. She always said, you learn more from listening than speaking. I try and listen a lot to people. But you also have to bring about change. And one of the things about lawyers is that we should be able to speak, put forward our arguments, and get people to change in the in their attitudes and in their beliefs and how they treat women.
I'm someone who wants to prioritize litigation after I complete my degree or I enter practice. But having interned at several law firms, we do see that there is this culture of presuming that female lawyers would not want to go to court or would not want to litigate. And hence, male interns are preferred over female interns until and unless you choose to go to associates yourself and tell them that you want to go to court as well. So what do you think law firms can do on their part, and what do you think we can do on our part to improve this?
I think law firms need to invest more in training. I think they definitely do, in awareness, in trying to get rid of these terrible norms that exist. I think it's happening. You have amazing lawyers like Nudra, who's just joined us. She's a formidable litigation lawyer.
Great timing.
Yes, it is indeed. And you have great role models here. So I think what you can do is, as I've said, improve yourself, learn the skills. Where you don't know the answers, try and find solutions, reach out to people, because you'll be surprised that as practicing lawyers, and Nudra will agree with me, we do want to help other people. We do want to see you succeed. We want you to come forward. We want to get rid of these negative images, these negative norms that exist, because they're holding us back as society. Hope that helps. Yeah?
Continuing what Ilya has said, we are talking about women empowerment. Don't you think we should also focus on educating men to empower women in a society like Pakistan? Because we don't have a lot of men like you here in Pakistan.
Yes.
Who think that women should be empowered.
I think it's a really good point. Very well done for saying that, because yes, it's about women empowerment, and sadly, it's a male-dominated society, and we do need. And I've said earlier in my address to you that education is very, very important. And if you look at what's happening across the world, places like India as well, what is going on with women and attitude to women, I think, and I'm a father and a grandfather now. Mothers have a big role to play in this, and do fathers, because it starts very young. Children have to be treated equally. बेटी और बेटे का कोई difference नहीं होता है. हमारे में ही होता है कि भाई बेटा हुआ तो खुशी हो. That's a very wrong attitude. And I think men are gradually beginning to change. I think it's not going to be, and my daughters are actually more dear to me than my son is. You won't like me saying that, but it will change. It'll take some time. There are challenges. The society here is kind of male dominated, but there are a lot of good women, as a live example here, sitting in front of you, Supreme Court advocate, who is practicing law, doing fantastic work, doing great, and clients have no hesitation in instructing her, feel that she will not be emotional. The question earlier was, are women more emotional when they're on their feet?
What was your answer?
They're not at all. I think women handle things fantastically. I think they do really well. They're more equipped, better at multitasking, emotional levels. How do you feel about that?
The first thing that comes to mind is that when the Quran was being compiled, we're talking about the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He, remember, it was on leaves, it was on vellum, on leather, and they were just compiling. Whenever he would have a revelation, they would write it down. The first person that was given the full Quran to keep in safekeeping and preserve was Hazrat Aisha. So it was a woman who took the first manuscript of the Quran. And this is so interesting. In a very male-dominated community and society, they entrusted the source of all law for all times to come to a woman.
Remarkable.
So
Remarkable. Alhamdulillah.
For us, I mean, that's the starting point for us going anywhere.
Yeah. So there you are. I mean, if the Prophet, peace be upon him, could entrust, quite rightly, a woman to do that, Hazrat Aisha, then men need to learn a lot. And I do, in my own small way, try with the young lawyers that I have in my office, the people I mentor, I really try and bring about change. We do get lawyers who are, students from Pakistan who are studying in the UK, and I do see a bit of an attitude of, I wouldn't say anti-women, but they somehow feel that they're better than women, which I completely frown upon, which is completely wrong. It has to start from home, it has to start from the schools, and that's a long process. And as I said, although we boast a great legal system in the UK, it has been there for hundreds of years. It's taken a long time. It was only, as I said earlier, 1912 that women were actually allowed to practice law. So the first woman who studied law at Oxford, I think, was in 1882. And, we're supposed to be a civilized society, so we got the vote very late for women. But now, I think to be honest, I think the tide is changing. It is time for women, about time too. I think women are rising. I think every corporation is looking at that. Look at all the big corporates today, from Hewlett Packard to Google and Facebook. You will find a woman somewhere on at very high level. Law firms in London, law firms in America. So there is a big opportunity for you. There's a challenge, yes, but there's also a big opportunity, because I do believe there should be some affirmative action now to right the wrong, to give women rightly the position they need in society.
While the percentage of women is lower in criminal field, but it is much more wide in family courts or in civil courts.
Okay, so women do not
Perceive criminal field.
okay, so they are not, she means that women are not more into criminal practice. They try to prefer going to the family cases. So what would be the reason?
I may have to defer to you on that, Nudra, because I don't have knowledge of that. Could you perhaps help me?
Yes, just go one day to the criminal court. You see the men, you see how men are afraid of men, you see the accused, you see the convicts, and you'll realize why fewer women go. It's, women themselves decide not to, families, for protection. There are the lawyers get shot. Like in criminal cases, lawyers get shot. So it's a very hard field across the board for men and women. But for women, until you actually have that exposure or the confidence and the understanding of a male accused psyche, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. So, not to say that there's a whole body of criminal law jurisprudence which hasn't developed. And that the problem with that is because so much of it is focused on procedure.
Right.
Like criminal law, I think in England also, and once you know the procedure, you know what the Pakistan Penal Code says or the CRPC says, that's what they argue on. What we actually need is jurisprudence in criminology. Like, what is mens rea? When there is a crime, what is the logical analysis? What are the ways to come to that? And that nobody does. And that is a great field for women to get into, because when you have that actually physically equips you to then fight cases. Because that sets you apart from the procedure. Anybody have kitab kholo, you find out that this is what section so and so says, you get a few cases and that's it. But how to analyze and convince a judge, that is a huge vacuum in Pakistan. It's waiting for all of you.
Excellent answer. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Very nice to see all of you. I recognized some faces from Salman. Assalamu alaikum. I won't talk about my journey, but that we can do another time. The important things. Saleem Sahab is a very useful and knowledgeable person. I got secret intel that there were questions from the girls, and I myself don't know who the girls were, so nobody should get in trouble. Where's Miss Aisha? Nobody should get in trouble. But the question I got was, why is a man talking about women in law? And I thought, actually, that's a very good question. Yeah. So why do you think? I think a man should talk about women in law. Any suggestions why a man should talk about women in law?
Mostly because we're trying to create knowledge within the patriarchal society that they need to talk about it, so women empowerment can be moved on a better.
Very good. Exactly. So us talking about women in law is preaching to the converted, right? We are women. Yeah. We know what our problems are. We know what the law is. What we want is the other side's perspective. How do they see us? And in that, there are inroads for us to understand how we need to be, right? So that's why it's very useful to have a man's perspective and see how men lawyers see women and see where the gaps are. And that becomes the very most useful thing. So
Excellent.
and but on the question of there was a question of what we can do, what you can do as students, and what practicing lawyers can do to help students. And that relates also to my personal journey. There was just one factor that I think really, after Allah and after just the support of a lot of people, because remember, every successful human being is a walking village. So if Saleem Saab standing here, it's because of his wife, his children, his friends, his office, his PAs, his cook. We are all walking villages. So ये तो ज़हन से निकाल लें कि मैं बड़ी चीज़ हूँ, क्योंकि मैं तो है ही नहीं ना, मैं तो doesn't exist. But the thing that sets any successful person apart is reading. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, big philanthropist, he said reading is like compound interest. 100 safhe, you read 100 pages a day, within a few years, you will have a weapon, like I said in criminal law, you will have a weapon nobody can challenge. So why I came back, I practiced in England, came back to Pakistan, very difficult to get into. At the Lahore High Court, Punjab, Pakistani, men, they're a very difficult law, I suppose law anywhere. We have lawyers who've been practicing for the last 40 years. They see somebody who comes from abroad, मुंह टेढ़ा करके अंग्रेजी बोल रही है, समझती क्या अपने आप को? She knows a little bit of law. What does she think of herself? Quite right. So to break into that, I realized the only thing I can do is I can just have more knowledge than they have. And that means just burning the midnight oil. Read and read, not just read law, read legal fiction, watch Suits, talk to people, anything and anywhere, anything to do with law, you just read. And you'll see the effect of that. So when your boss doesn't let you go, because the boss says कि वो adjournment लेनी है, नहीं आप क्या जाएंगे वहाँ पे इतने लड़के आदमी होंगे, you stay here. You change his mindset not by saying, sir, I want to go to court. You change his mindset by speaking so intelligently about whatever the matter is that he will think that, अच्छा इसको साथ, she has a good point, let me send her with him. That's it. Reading.